You know, this is my kind of college football live, a live college football live. The Heisman, Desmond Howard, Greg McElroy, Ryan Leaf. I'm only Matt Berry, going to try to keep this thing going. You guys, we're getting close. Are we getting a little more excited? It's Tuesday. It kind of feels like football. Both teams are going to be practicing. Last time we saw Clemson was literally last decade when they were in the Fiesta Bowl taking on Ohio State. And it was a great game. PlayStation Fiesta Bowl down 16-0, fought their way back to the national championship. Clemson is beginning their preparation and practicing as we speak. Here's Katie George in the upstate of South Carolina with the first of two team reports.
Well, Matt, the Tigers are currently practicing here at the football facility as we speak. This is the second of 3 full practices they'll partake in before leaving for New Orleans on Friday. Now, the mid-year arrivals who got to campus this past weekend are able to play as soon as today, assuming they clear their physicals and complete orientation, which means DJ Uiagalelei, the number 1 rated quarterback in the class of 2020, could potentially take snaps as a scout quarterback this week. At 6'5", 240 pounds, Uiagalelei has a thicker but similar build to Joe Burrow and the same kind of arm strength. So multiple defensive players say they're excited to go against a more realistic look at quarterback heading into Monday night's championship game. Now for more on LSU, let's send it over to Stefano.
Thanks, Katie. LSU head coach Ed Orgeron is trying to make things as normal as possible for his players this week. After an off day yesterday and today, the team will open practice tomorrow here in Baton Rouge, and Coach O will address the media afterwards. Following their practice on Friday, they'll head about an hour down I-10 to New Orleans, where they'll continue their preparation in the now vacant Saints facility. Now, Coach O said this week, "We can't make this game bigger than life," but that's no small task. Because remember, 55% of LSU's roster is made up of Louisiana natives who have dreamed about this very moment, playing in the Superdome with a chance to bring a title back to LSU. Matt, back to you in the studio.
Stefano, thank you. I don't want to panic you, but Mike the Tiger was back there just pacing.
Yeah, exactly right.
He's like, dude, this is my area. Keep the TV cameras
and
away.
I'm the real Tiger here.
Yeah, 100%. That statue you're by is all well and good. When you look at both of these teams, we talked about a second ago, getting ready for preparation of the game. And Desmond, I'll start with you here. They've got the 13, 15-day layoff. If you're beginning your bowl preparations right now, what's the biggest challenge for each head coach to get this team back into a game mode?
Well, the biggest challenge for me is for Coach O, because he hasn't been here before. Dabo Swinney, he's been here before. Even though it's a longer layoff between the semifinal and the final game, he still knows the routine. I think Coach O, he's going to have to make sure that his guys don't peak too soon. Everyone's excited, everyone's anxious, and this is in their backyard practically. So if I'm Coach O, I want to make sure that my guys just don't peak too soon.
I think they're starting at the right time, because if this preparation, the intense preparation, would have started the day after they played in the semifinal game, then you could get to this point and all of a sudden all those plays that looked great on paper right after you wrote them down originally, you might start to overanalyze those things. And sometimes you can outsmart yourself, give yourself too many options, too many checks, too many adjustments for what you think they might do to you. So I think sometimes delaying that preparation, delaying that process of putting together a game plan can actually work in your favor. So I applaud that both coaches have kind of stalled that a little bit and put it back a little bit further, try to keep this as normal game routine as humanly possible.
And don't forget, this is exactly the bowl preparation they just went through. Right from the conference championship until the national semifinal was 16, 17 days. This is no different. So they're going to be in the same kind of motion they were before. They're going to get everything ready, the kids getting their families to the place, just like a Super Bowl prep. And then they're going to get into what game week is like. And that's where they're in right now. So I don't think anything changes. To your point, I think that's exactly right. This is the first time for LSU guys, for Ed O, right? I mean, this is the 5th time for Dabo Swinney.
Well, and the backyard point as well. You're a short bus right away. So you're hearing this over
That's
and over.
almost worse.
And
like,
it is
worse.
You could say
about distractions? Are you kidding
Tickets?
me? Yeah, exactly.
I mean, requests. Everyone wants a little of your time.
Your boys who went to high school with you now are only 5 minutes away from halfway across the country. So it's a big difference for these guys.
But you get a sense, too, that they're playing for the state of Louisiana, and throughout this entire season, especially with Coach O, the pride that has been on display with them. We'll have much more in the national championship coming up, but just when you thought the coaching silly season was over, there are now more vacancies in college football with the news today that Matt Rhule, Baylor head coach, is leaving Baylor to be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. The deal is 7 years, $60 million with incentives that could be worth up to $70 million, that according to our Adam Schefter. Rhule was scheduled to meet with the Giants today, but then canceled that after his interview with team ownership. in Carolina. So Rhule completely turned around the Baylor Bears in just 3 years, going from 1-11 to 11-3. And a big reason why was the defense. Nearly 100-yard difference in total defense over that stretch. And the turnover margin was an improvement of 25. Now, I've been very vocal about the job that I thought Matt Rhule did at Baylor. It needs to go down as perhaps one of the great coaching jobs in college football history because of what he inherited into what he turned it into. Ryan, I'll start with you. What kind of blow is this to Baylor? Just coming off a Sugar Bowl loss to Georgia, but that program seemingly on the way up to one of the best in Texas, if not the best in Texas.
Well, I think it could be significant, but I also think he could have laid the foundation of what can be at Baylor after almost having the death penalty placed on them, okay? So I was a little surprised. Yesterday I was adamant about thinking that he would stay there. You know, a chance to win a Big 12 title after they got to that point. But he wanted the next challenge, and when you throw $70 million at you, I mean, that's generational wealth for him and his family. So it didn't surprise me. I think Baylor's going to be okay. I really do. I think they're going to get a nice either assistant of his in place that has the foundation there, or they go outside and find a very good head coach, because guess what? That's the best spot in Power 5 right now.
Well, and that's just it. What's out there, McElroy? Everything's been filled.
There's enough out there. Now, are you going to get somebody that's at a Power 5 job where you can win to consider your offer? Right. Probably not, because they've already recruited. They're already putting the class together that's going to sign here in February. So you're going to have to probably look at the Group of 5 ranks. And if you look at Group of 5 football right now, just across the landscape, it's exceptionally good from a coaching standpoint, whether it's at Cincinnati with Luke Fickell, Lance Leipold at Buffalo, Will Healy at Charlotte, Brian Harsin at Boise State, what Billy Napier's done in short order at Louisiana. I mean, there are a laundry list of candidates that would be willing to listen to Baylor, because they've proven quickly that you can win there, and it's really about resources.
Absolutely.
And they have tremendous resources there in Waco with the facilities they have and their commitment to winning.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Coach Rhule did a fantastic job there. You know, there was a job that no one wanted to touch. And he did there, and he went there and turned the program around. He left them in good hands right now. I think it's actually a desirable job at this point, much better than it was 4 years ago.
It wasn't desirable. Like, it was, you can't touch it. It was radioactive.
It was people going to Matt Rhule and say,
what are you doing?
Yeah.
Exactly.
They were in football purgatory at that point.
It was radioactive.
And I said it a second ago, I know people in Texas will be all over me for this, but think about what they're doing in Texas. They were better than the Longhorns.
Right. Yeah.
They had a better thing going than them. Yeah. Texas A&M and the SEC, I know Jimbo's going to get that thing going a little bit, but if you look at some of the football out there, Texas Tech, you could argue that Baylor right now, TCU had a down year, was one of the better programs.
What about SMU, man? Come on, don't forget the
Ponies. Don't forget about Dykes.
That's a name, too.
That's another name.
Sonny Dykes' name should be involved in that mix, too. But I loved your point on Billy Napier at Louisiana. I had them twice this year. What they've been able to do down there in Lafayette and that staff, he's got the foundation of being coached under Dabo Swinney and Nick Saban. There's something to be said there for him.
Well, he's a name that you might hear come up with Mississippi State. That was another opening, surprisingly, with Moorhead getting fired after just 2 seasons. If you were a coach and you were looking at, okay, these 2 jobs are open, Desmond, who would you listen to first, Baylor or Mississippi State, is perhaps the better job?
Wow, that's a really tough question. I think because of where Baylor is, don't forget, Baylor's a team that was flirting with the college football playoff. I mean, they were just on the cusp. If they could have won the Big 12 championship game, they might have been a team that could have gotten there. So I think that makes them very attractive. So I would probably pick Waco and Baylor.
I'd go Baylor because of the conference and the upward mobility that you have in the Big 12. I mean, let's be real. What Dan Mullen did at Mississippi State was nothing short of remarkable, having them at #1 in the country under Dak Prescott a few years back. I'm not sure that's repeatable at this point, where their program's at. I think they're capped. Because can you surpass Alabama in the SEC West, LSU in the SEC West? Probably not. A&M, as it feels like they're on their way up here in the near future.
Now at Ole Miss.
That's going to make things a little trickier.
Right.
There's only one program for certain that you are significantly better than, and that's Arkansas in the SEC West. Whereas when you look at Baylor and the upward mobility and the fact that the Big 12 top to bottom is better than they were, but there's still room for growth as the league kind of progresses. I think Baylor is the more attractive option.
You Roll Tide here forgot about Auburn in that division,
too. He was charting it. He was charting it.
I mean, that's the difference. Is to you either go to the SEC West and sit in mediocrity, or you go to a place that played for the Big 12 championship a year ago.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a no-brainer right now. Any of those guys that get the offer, Baylor's the place I'm going to.
And which, by the way, Matt Rhule's got talent, left talent there. You make a good point. Do one of his assistants get the job? Do they find one of those group of 5 guys? We've had the early signing day. Can you hold together a class for the traditional February
Think about
signing
the playoff,
day?
though. I mean, Ed Ogeron hired from within. Dabo Sweeney hired from within.
We said that all
Lincoln
of them.
Riley headed from within. It's amazing. So you're right.
Sometimes the next shiny thing
It's right there in front
isn't
of you.
always the greatest toy outside of the building. Still ahead on this live College Football Live. We're going to talk about the running back breakdown. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's really, really good. Not much of a factor in the playoff. ETN.
The National Championship Game, presented by AT&T, January 13th on ESPN.
Now, anyone who spent time with our late colleague Ed Aschoff knew he loved 3 things. He loved a good suit, he loves college football, and he had a passion for telling stories. Earlier this year, the two collided with the storytelling in college football when Ed spent time with LSU running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, whose last name with a hyphen is a story unto itself. It explains his life with 2 fathers.
More than a buzz at Bryant Denny. That's what I'm talking about.
The biggest thing that everybody heard was they said he wasn't a running back. It was more than that for me. Yeah, I'm the shortest guy on the field, but I'm going to make sure like my impact is seen.
Father and son in a time-halting embrace, a relationship that was never guaranteed. Born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Clyde Edwards was 11 months old when his father was arrested and later convicted of attempted possession of 400 grams of cocaine. Clyde Edwards Sr. was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Shortly after, Clyde's mother, Tangela, met Shannon Helaire.
I wasn't missing, that father figure because I always had my stepdad.
When we started dating, all he could remember was Shannon. He treated him just like, that was his biological son. So he didn't have any questions. He never came with any questions or, like, is that my dad or, nothing.
He taught me pretty much everything, from being respectful to, looking a man in his eye when I'm talking to him.
We fished, we did a lot of things like that, but they were always involved in sports. And that's when I really recognized his craft because like a game of tag, he was never tagged.
At first, Clyde's mother thought he was too small to play football. But after a phone call with Clyde Sr. in prison, he was allowed to play.
The coaches, they would say, he just has it. He do things nobody could teach him.
Every year, I'd have someone tell me, hey, he did real well, but next year the kids are gonna be older and smarter. He's not gonna be able to do that. And every year he did it over and over and over again.
What sort of pride did you have, but also sadness that you weren't there with him to see all this?
It was, it was bittersweet. You hear the stuff that your kid doing, and you're like, wow. One of your deepest dreams is to get out there and be able to watch this.
As his football prowess grew, Clyde felt something was missing from his name. Instead of changing it, he added to it.
I didn't want to drop Edwards because, respect for my biological father, and then I wanted to honor the fact that I was raised by, a great man, a great family, with Helaire.
I mean, it was overwhelming to have somebody to want to do that because you know that you've done something right. Because if you haven't, they wouldn't want to mirror you in any capacity.
At about the same time, Clyde Edwards was turning his life around. In 2014, he was released from prison early for good behavior after serving 14 years, and immediately began reconnecting with a son he hardly knew, starting with a promise.
I'm going to be there no matter what because I missed so much time. And I feel like I owe it to you to always be there for you. So, and that was like initial reaction, him pretty much promising like no matter what situation, I'll always be there.
It wasn't never strained like, okay, well, I don't know you because you ain't been here. I guess it's just a bond knowing, this my dad.
It's been completely no confrontation at all. I mean, we find ourselves high-fiving, and most home games we're next to each other, and it's almost a chest bump.
The celebrations moved from the stands of Catholic High School to Tiger Stadium at LSU, where everyone could see the hyphen in his name, a short, straight connection between two fathers who have taken different paths to support their son.
It makes me proud, man, knowing from where I've come from and what I've been through. Words will never be able to completely explain the joy.
The first time that I saw this was in New Orleans at the BYU game because he always said he wanted to go to LSU. And they always said, well, yeah, he'll probably play D1 ball somewhere, but he probably won't be at LSU. And I knew he could. I was overwhelmed with pride to see that he did it. He did it. He did it.
This tweet from Clyde's mother after hearing of Edwards' passing. My heart is heavy. I had the honor of meeting this great human being. A smile as bright and beautiful as the sun with a personality to match. He said Clyde was a joy to interview. We talked a great deal, as you can see. It's the mother and nurse and me. # gone too soon. We echo those sentiments. Edward, we love you and we miss you. And we know that you would enjoy this college football playoff matchup coming up on Monday between LSU and Clemson. The story, of course, on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, close to 1,700 total yards, all-purpose back. Didn't need him in the semifinal. What problems will he present for the Clemson defense, who really didn't get any film on him based on what they did in the playoffs?
Well, assuming he's 100% healthy, which just based on, I'll operate under that assumption. We're never supposed to assume on injuries. It's been 15 days. I think he's going to be all right. What I love so much about this guy is, although he's diminutive, not very tall, he's extremely powerful. And he also possesses the ability to run between the tackles and create opportunities on the edge. But his best attribute, more than anything else, is his ability to create mismatches in the passing game. You put him out there on an island against a linebacker, that's an all-points bulletin matchup that Joe Burrow has to take advantage of. Plus what he does after the catch as well. He is so good in the transition to this spread offense. It's as much about Joe Burrow as it was about utilizing Clyde Edwards-Helaire, in which no one's really been able to slow him down throughout the course of the season.
They have a Biletnikoff. They have a Heisman Trophy winner. You could argue that perhaps this kid may have been the MVP of the office because he could do so much. Yeah. You were actually impressed with another freshman, Chris Curry, in the semifinal because there was no Clyde Edwards-Helaire, yet one of these younger backs was able to step up. That could also pose a problem for Clemson if everybody's healthy.
Yeah, because you don't know the status of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. We assume that he's going to be healthy. We know he's going to play. But even if he's not, going to play the normal amount of snaps that he normally would play, this guy, Chris Curry, to come in here and give him a spell is outstanding, fantastic. I mean, he runs with an attitude. He runs with intensity, very physical. Once he's going north and south, it's like trying to stop a freight train. I was like, good night. Where did they get this young man from? So there's not a big drop-off in the running game when you put Chris Curry in the game. So in my opinion, obviously, Clyde Edwards-Helaire he's the most important person on the offense, not named Joe Burrow. But when Chris Curry comes in there, as far as the running game is concerned, there's not a big drop-off whatsoever.
I'll add
That's
to it.
an LSU back.
Yeah, that
yes,
kid
sir. Like, when you say LSU, you think LSU back, you think, all right, there's a brick wall. Here I'm going to run right into it.
You see him run, you're like, well, where did they get this kid?
I know, he wants to punish tacklers.
And by the way, they've got another true freshman, John Emery. 5-star recruit, highest-rated running back recruit to come to LSU since Leonard Fournette. They've got running backs everywhere. But back to the running back they're going to have to deal with in Clyde Edwards-Helaire. From a quarterback's perspective, how nice is it to have a guy that if everything's not well downfield, check here, check there, and by the way, he'll get 6-7 yards.
It's absolutely the best security blanket you can have. When things start to break down, when you don't have a lot of tight ends in the spread game in college football now, you have a running back that can do this. And he talked about how small he is. He hides out there. In that Alabama game, he caught passes, he ran the ball and got yards after contact that turned into big plays. right here is a perfect example. Look at him take the contact on here and score the touchdown. He was the difference maker in that game along with Joe Burrow. When you have all these other things going on and you have to be worried about a running back like this, Brent Venables has got to have been sitting around since he found out that they were going to play LSU and just been thinking, what am I going to do to make this a different football game?
When he catches the ball out of the backfield, when you look at someone who's got that multidimensional type of talent, how does that take pressure off your quarterback, knowing that no matter what, there's someone there to protect you?
Well, it's an easy outlet. I mean, I can think of a play against Alabama, 3rd down and 10. They bring pressure up the middle. The pressure gets home. Burrow's getting smoked, and he's like, I got to get it out to my playmaker. Give me something, Clyde. He catches it 1 yard downfield. Next thing you know, makes a guy miss. Yeah. Finds a way to get the first down by carrying a defender to that first down marker. He is an outlet that you can always rely on. As long as you know where he's at and you can find him, he's going to make the first guy miss, and then, hey, anything can happen after that.
And I tell you what, man, these two can speak to it better than I can. It's such a comfort level, too, when you know that this guy, not only is he an outlet valve, but he can pick up the blitz, too. He's excellent in pass pro. Knowing that your backside's going to be protected because Hilaire's there is just a tremendous value to Joe Burrow as a quarterback.
He's the quarterback of the rest of the guys, if that makes sense, because he can. He can pass protect. Exactly. He can catch you out of the backfield. They've got receivers everywhere. Yeah. But this player, to me, if he's not 100%, they're going to have a hard time against the Clemson defense, who doesn't get as much credit as they should based on what they lost last year.
And for them to get pressure on Burrow, they're going to have to play a ton of man coverage, and they're going to have to bring guys. So if you do that, there are going to be a lot of man-on-man opportunities against Edwards-Helaire. And he's won them all year long. And it's going to depend on if Isaiah Simmons is that guy that steps up as the linebacker and maybe goes one-on-one with them. I'll be really interested to see what this game plan looks like.
And even when used as a decoy, like even if he doesn't touch the football, it's no big deal. That's not a problem, because when I put him out into formation, say they're in an empty set, I can figure out if they're running man or if I can figure out if they're running zone based on who follows him out of the backfield. If the corner bumps out, it's zone. If a linebacker runs with him or a safety goes with them, it's man. So he can be used even in ways when he doesn't touch the football to help Joe Burrow identify coverage.
They did in the Peach Bowl, but he carried the ball a couple of times because he wasn't 100%. But they used him as a decoy and ended up, I don't know, you would have done it differently. But either way, he was used as a decoy, to your point, and it worked. Remember that thing we're going to do with the quarterbacks, the touch screen, the back and forth?
Yes,
Who's better, Lawrence or Burrow?
Has never gotten old.
All right, so Joe Burrow has been sensational all season, throwing 55 touchdown passes and on the verge of setting the FBS record for the best completion percentage in a season. Now, Trevor Lawrence, he struggled early on, but he's been lights out since early October. That seems like a decade ago. Lawrence was asked if he ever compares himself to the Heisman winner Burrow.
He's just a great player. He's really fun to watch. You know, I've gotten to watch him a few times, and then obviously you see like highlights and whatever on ESPN, but just a great player. I think just he can do so many things well. You know, he can run a little bit too. He's mobile, so that helps him. And then also just really accurate and has really good pocket presence. But, you know, he's a lot of fun to watch for sure.
Just a pair of superstar quarterbacks coming to the national championship on Monday, respectively, with the first pick of the 2020 draft, Joe Burrow. With the first pick of the 2021 draft, we assume Trevor Lawrence. So this is going to be fun. What we've done is we've compiled a list of attributes for our two quarterbacks to pick between accuracy, decision-making, pocket mobility, athleticism, and the X factor. All Desmond's going to sit here and do is tell them why they're wrong. All I am here to do is to move them along through the segment. So which one of you two is going first?
Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm going to go first. Okay.
Okay, so accuracy.
I've been told I'm going first here. Accuracy for me, it's a toss-up between both players, but
those are the only two options.
I feel like Joe Burrow has been better all year long, especially when things break down. He's just been able to be more accurate down the football field when he's had people in his face. So I give the lead there to Joe Burrow in this situation.
You just look at the completion percentage; it's ridiculous. And what I appreciate most about Joe Burrow is making throws even when his guys are covered by throwing it where only his guy can get it. Look, you're covered, that's great. I'm going to throw it high and to the back shoulder so I can allow my receiver to adjust to the football, go up and get it. So even when you cover these LSU wide receivers, there's still a window for Joe Burrow to take advantage of, and he did so time and time again throughout the course.
It seems as if, too, of any quarterback in the country, he's always hitting his receivers at max speed.
Yeah.
They never stop what they're doing to catch his throw.
And sometimes they stop intentionally, which is amazing.
Yeah, it's an incredible combo with what he's at.
That one was easy. What, 78% on the season?
Joe
Burrow all day, every day.
No, if somebody would have picked something different, you would have had something to say.
All right, so McElroy, decision-making. Who wins this one?
I'm going Joe Burrow. And if I'm going to take the entire body of work, I understand how good Trevor Lawrence has been in the final half of the season. He's been remarkable. 0 interceptions, all the touchdowns. So smart with the football, but still, you have to acknowledge the first half of the season. Trevor Lawrence threw far too many interceptions.
Yeah.
I mean, he threw far too many interceptions for my liking. So if I'm going to take the total package for the 2019 season, I have to lean towards Joe Burrow.
That's a good point.
I'm going to go with Trevor Lawrence here. And to your point, early on in the season, he had guys in that room at wide receiver where he thought they were throwing what people call 50-50 balls. They're more like 80-20 balls, in my opinion. When you have a wide receiver room like that, he was taking chances down the football field. They weren't making them. He threw 8 interceptions up into that Louisville game. Since then, 22 touchdowns, 0 interceptions since that point. He's been better at his decision-making. I think it's going to be the key that gets him over the top if they win this football game.
You know, when Trevor said that he admitted that the pressure coming to the season for the Heisman hype really got to him, so he was really pressing early. That's why he threw 14 touchdown passes, 8 interceptions. I think the decision-making, though, I will have to give it to Joe because he's just been very consistent.
But you're right. Beginning of the season, this kid came in with so much hype as one of the greatest quarterbacks we've ever seen. Perhaps the early part of the season. Pressed a
little bit.
Settled down, and then they just started beating everybody, especially after that North Carolina game. All right, pocket mobility. Well, I'm not going to say what I think because this is your guys' segment. So, Matt, because there was the Ohio State game should make this one easy, but go ahead.
Okay.
Oh, what? Exactly.
Hang on. There we go.
Oh, my God.
You weren't going that way, were you?
Matt, you can have these two. This is great.
Pocket mobility.
All right.
Pocket
you're talking about awareness
I'm
within
one step.
Pocket mobility. Not running all over the place, but just the inside the pocket. Athleticism.
Okay, so sell me on pocket mobility for Burrow.
Well, if you watch any play from any game this year, he looks like he has Tom Brady's feet. And it makes sense because over the last 20 years, these kids have been emulating the best at the next level. It's been Tom Brady. Yeah. And you're getting to see it. Now, things like this is the athleticism part, but what he does inside the pocket, it's Joe Burrow, in my opinion.
It's crazy how he moves around and negotiates defenders while still maintaining a passing posture. And that's what I'm blown away by in watching him is he's always ready to throw. And when he does move and escape the pocket, his eyes are still downfield to allow those wide receivers to make plays on the football. So I for one, am definitely leaning towards Joe Burrow in this regard.
2 good points by 2 quarterbacks. I have to agree, He's very nifty in the pocket, so I'll give you that,
Okay, so maybe this is the one I was alluding to.
Yeah, exactly.
Come on, top end speed. We'll give you that one.
Right.
All I had to do was watch one play, and I could figure out who's the more athletic of the 2. You watch that long run against Ohio State, and you're leaving the Buckeyes in the dust. Forget about it. Like, he's the more athletic of the 2.
I didn't know he was Vince Young or had it in him. The way that he separated from a very fast team is that's something. If you're an NFL GM and you're like, wait a second. He's got that in him?
Yeah.
That's just an added layer. Who do you have for athleticism?
Yeah, I got the same guy, right? I mean, just being the size that he is, right? 6'5", 230 pounds, and his ability to do what he does. He runs away from people. And if you look at the play in the national semifinal, right, they weren't running the ball well. So they went hat on hat and put him on the free safety. Right there, he makes that move, makes a miss. He gets about the 18-yard line, and I think he thinks in a moment that he's just simply going to go out of bounds. And he's like, no, I can win this race. And there away he goes. And he's the most athletic. I know Joe Burrow shooting 3-pointers at his bowl game the other day. He's going to have something else to say about that probably.
Well, he had said watching
well-rounded
film.
athlete was not the answer.
Right.
That's not the answer.
He had said watching film going into the Ohio State game, he said he saw a couple of areas where he could damage them with his feet, and we saw him do that. It really changed the tide of the game for Clemson. All right, so right now, going into the last one, we've got 2-2 with Leaf, 3-1 with McElroy. Now, I want to be clear about what X Factor means to each of you before we pick. What's X Factor mean to you?
Just something extra that he brings to the table that might be not necessarily a tangible thing that you can see, something like that. That, for me, is an X factor when you talk about these quarterbacks.
What's your definition?
Similar. I think your effect on other players, something that you can't do physically on the field, but still the effect is felt. So the X factor is up for interpretation, but I know how I interpret. I'd be curious to hear your explanation as to why you chose this guy.
All right, go ahead.
I choose my guy here, Trevor Lawrence again. For me, his X factor is simply his toughness and his leadership qualities. The play in the national semifinal, when he takes this targeting hit and goes down and he lays there. I was standing on the sideline and I felt like that whole team felt it happen and all the wind got out and then he jogged off the field like that. A few plays later, this is what happens. And breaking ankles. It took over that sideline. It took over that sideline. For me, his toughness, his leadership qualities, 25-0 for a reason. He's got a chance to win back-to-back national championships. Be
As
the
a
best
sophomore,
quarterback.
still going to come back next year, which is incredible.
You're guaranteed it. After the game last year, I said that. I said, after he won that game, I said, you are guaranteed 2 more years of Trevor Lawrence and Justin Ross, and you're going to get it.
X factor for you.
I'm going the effect on other guys. And Joe Burrow right now has LSU on both sides of the football believing that they can walk on water. This guy has so much confidence, bordering on arrogance. And frankly, arrogance for a quarterback, not the worst quality.
No.
I mean, from waving to the fans at Texas. There it is.
There
All right,
it is.
on cue. From waving to the fans at Texas. But if you talk to anybody that's on that LSU team, they genuinely believe that with number 9 leading us every single Saturday, we're going to win. And it's remarkable the effect he's had in being able to expect points on every drive and the way the team is really rallying around him.
X factor for you.
Wow. You know, I agree with you about Joe Burrow. I was down in Baton Rouge, and I spoke to a couple of the receivers, and I wanted to talk to him right after practice. And so he's like, let me check with Joe first to see if he needs me to run some routes. So there was Jamar Chase running red zone routes, and I'm talking to Justin Jefferson. He said, okay, he doesn't need me right now. Then we had a conversation. And then he went down to the other end, and then Jamar Chase. Everybody just have so much respect for Joe Burrow. So I will have to say he has that type of X factor. But we know how much they love Trevor Lawrence. He already won him a national championship. But Joe was their alpha male.
Let me tell you something, though. If you look at Clemson, where they've come with quarterbacks, Deshaun Watson, prior to him, Taj Boyd, we've seen a pretty decent run of quarterbacks at Clemson. Joe Burrow took a team that used to just run 3 yards of play and hope that would work.
Absolutely.
And has made them one of the best offenses we've ever seen in college football history. Okay. There was a specific play with Trevor that you wanted to break some tape down, and what made it so special? I'm sorry, with Burrow.
I'll take Joey. Yeah. I'll take Joey football here. I think this play kind of sums up their season. This is 3rd and 17. We're going against the Texas Longhorns. The Texas Longhorns are going to bring a pressure. You're going to see blitz here, and you're going to see guys essentially on islands all over the place defensively, coming off the edge on this side. And it's pretty remarkable how he's able to negotiate the pocket. Look, this right here, you're dead in the water. Because none of your receivers have even come out of their break yet. I mean, look at the wide receivers at the top. They're all trying to figure out exactly where it is they're going to go. What he's going to eventually get to is Justin Jefferson crossing face, working across the field. But look at the pocket. We mentioned the pocket mobility. This is cloudy. This is obviously cloudy. Not a whole lot that I need to tell you there. So he has a very small space with which he has to operate. He steps up, finds that space while still keeping his eyes downfield, moves just slightly to his left to allow the little bit more time to separate. And he delivers an absolute strike by getting his shoulders turned and delivering it to Jefferson accurate. This was the icing on the cake. They were up 7. They had to have it 3rd and 17. Texas had some momentum. This ended the Longhorns' night, essentially. So that was the one play that stands out to me for what Joe Burrow did this year and just how incredible he is in the pocket and throwing the ball accurately.
And that was the play that made him a Heisman candidate. Yes, sir.
Well, because a lot of times we see these quarterbacks, when they start trying to find some mobility, they don't keep their eyes downfield.
Right.
Does he do that as good as anyone you've ever seen?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
At this level,
I mean, even the play in the Peach Bowl, he was running around to the side. He's like,
"That's just ridiculous."
He's got to run this.
That was
something about it. No, there's something about it to be able to throw the football in the face of all of that. And that's where my play comes into it, what Trevor Lawrence was able to do. You look at the national championship a year ago, late in the game to seal it, all right? You got the big guy coming right here to put all the pressure on him, and he stands in there, all right? He stands in there and lets it go down. When he's about to throw this ball, the guy's about to hit him. This is a guy, I don't know if I could have seen him, right? I don't know if anybody saw him. He knew he was there, and he knew exactly how far he had to go. Look how far away the receiver was at the time when he lets this thing go. Watch where it ends up. It's absolutely perfect. A guy hits him right in the mouth. He throws it right over the top of his hands to that big wide receiver. That sealed it. That was him as a freshman. He's gotten better. His receivers have gotten better. This football team is the ultimate in winning machines right now. 29-0.
Yeah.
They're going to put it up here on the 13th.
All right, so I'll leave the quarterback segment with this. And by the way, if you're wondering where the ETN segment is, we did Clyde Edwards-Helaire earlier. We'll do ETN coming up in just a minute. You get one quarterback in this game, down 6, touchdown to win it, 2-minute drill.
Oh, man. 2-minute drill. Wow.
To win the game.
I think I would go with Joe Burrow because I love his receivers, too. That's a package deal.
It's funny. We just went through this whole thing.
Yeah.
It's Trevor Lawrence. He's playing with house money. He's already got a national championship. He just did a 2-minute drive against Ohio State right down the field in 4 plays, hitting ETN for the touchdown. And if he doesn't win, he can come back next year and do it again. The guy's playing with house money.
Over Burrow in your.
Yeah. 2-minute drive's different, though. That wasn't a fact.
That wasn't a fact.
No.
Maybe
right.
Who you take?
LSU's the monster.
Yeah.
They shake loose. Clemson's not going to be able to catch them. If it's a 2-minute drill at the end of the game, guy who's been there, guy who's done it over and over, Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. They're going to make some NFL franchise happy when they.
Instinct.
All right, Travis Etienne is the first in FBS with 8.8 yards per carry, with this season. He does most of his damage after contact. It's 5.2 yards after first contact per rush, leads FBS. And Clemson has been able to keep him fresh, carrying the ball fewer than 14 times per game. That's a stat that jumps out to me with ETN, only 14 times per game. And you got a running back of his caliber and what he's able to do. Desmond, what kind of player is ETN? What does he bring to this offense?
Explosive player, dynamic player with the ball. And I think he's a guy that you don't need to take off the field no matter what the situation is. If it's an obvious passing down, he had 2 receiving touchdowns against Ohio State in the Fiesta Bowl. At 5'10", about 210 pounds, extremely physical runner, probably pound for pound, one of the most physical runners in college football. Great blocker, really developed as a pass receiver, though, to come out the backfield. Just an explosive player for Clemson's offense.
He's just so difficult upon first contact. He's got such incredible body control that he can evade the first tackler and get back to 0 to 60 in no time. If there's one area of his game I'd like to see him improve, it's in pass protection, where I think still as a young player, which is to be expected, that's the one area where he's not super elite. So he is excellent in so many ways. And even in Trevor Lawrence's struggles early in the season, ETN was the most defendable player on their team, at least on the offensive side of the football. So he's been sensational all year.
The expectations were set so high for this football team. They just have been all year long. And if you didn't if you didn't go over that, people didn't really pay attention. And they just didn't when you talked about Travis Etienne. And they're starting to now, because guess what? In that Ohio State game, he was the difference maker. He really was. He got that big man touchdown where he shoved them out of the way on the toss, cuts back up inside and gets the big touchdown here. And then he catches one for a long gainer in that speed, and then the final nail in the coffin, the pass over the middle on the fake quarterback draw. He is the special player for this team, and I think he's going to have to be the reason they win if they find a way to win this game.
McElroy, I'm with you, though. When Lawrence was struggling early on, he was the guy.
He was a bell cow.
Feed him the ball.
Hit him the rock.
Keep this offense going. The best fiber for an offense,
exactly.
A running back.
No
and he
doubt.
gave him that. Saturday noon Eastern, ABC, the ESPN app, on the FCS championship game between North Dakota State and James Madison. You want a long layoff between games, between the semifinals and this one. Continue and end our celebration of college football's 150th year. We're going to take a look at the college football player with an in-depth documentary of how the player has evolved throughout the years and how they've played a part as unique heroes in our sports culture.
We're going to take it tonight. We put it on the line. We put it on the line. What time is it? What time is it?
College football is a game of promise.
But I promise you one thing. You will never see any player play as hard as I will play the rest of the season.
A game of youth.
Fight for it, fight for it, what do we want?
There are no grizzled veterans.
Stood at the throw, throws it back to Young. Young catches the ball. They do score. BYU did it.
No one making one last comeback. Only the young.
We got 75,000, and it came here to see Hurricane football.
Coming and going in a few short years.
Intercepted! Intercepted! The Ducks have the ball! Kenny Wayne is going to score!
They stay just long enough for us to love them,
Navy quarterback star Roger Staubach.
And sometimes never to forget them.
Williams breaks a hole. Williams runs to the Hall of Fame.
I've had a sneak peek at this one. Phenomenal. Football is Us, an in-depth look at the player through the years. That's Saturday, 3 Eastern on ABC. Now let's take a look at what's in store this postseason, brought to you by Macy's. Take your pick of different ways to watch Monday's championship game. Plenty of options. Here's the MegaCast lineup. Main broadcast on ESPN with the game slated for 8 p.m. Last year, MegaCast, I was in a blimp.
Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
For 7 hours.
Okay.
With Marty Smith.
Maybe not.
No, it was Elle Duncan. 8 hours with Elle in a blimp. Let's take a look at our Progressive Bowl Challenge Cup standings with 1 game remaining in the bowl season. SEC clinched the best record, no matter what happens. Conference has gone 7-2 so far. It's the first Bowl Challenge Cup win for the SEC since 2015. Big 12, 1-5. All right, we've played 39 bowl games.
Yeah.
We have 1 left.
Right.
The 40th and final one. So we're going to lead up to this point of who's had the best bowl performance so far. Desmond, I'm going to lead off with you.
I got to talk about LSU's wide receiver, Justin Jefferson. I mean, he just completely went off in the Peach Bowl against Oklahoma. First half, 9 receptions, over 180 yards. But check this out, guys. Not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 touchdowns in 1 half of football. That's outstanding, and that's balling. So I got to go Justin Jefferson.
What about you, Ryan?
For me, it was Justin Herbert, a guy that spurned the NFL and its money, came back and said, we're going to win the Pac-12 conference. We're going to go to the Rose Bowl. What do? They go out and win it. He carries it 3 times for touchdowns, puts himself right back in the conversation for best quarterback heading into the NFL draft. Really proud of him and the accomplishment this season.
Come on, y'all are forgetting the best performance of them all. Lynn Bowden, who, by the way, is
not
the only weapon that Kentucky has. Like, the only guy. And remember, he was going up against Bud Foster and that Virginia Tech defense.
Yeah.
That was his last game. He goes for over 300 all-purpose. Lynn Bowden's performance was sensational.
Yeah.
A lot of good bowl performances. We'll probably see the best of them all come Monday night at the National Championship. That'll do it for another edition of College Football Live.